Welcome to Mindful Moments. It's like a protein bar for your brain, you know? What if, like, everything we think we know about, reality is just the tip of the iceberg? What if there's like a deeper, more, I guess, fundamental unity under like all the chaos of the world? Today, we're diving into this idea of the one.
It's an idea that's captivated philosophers like for centuries in both the East and West. It's this quest, this human quest to find the like underlying principle, that unifying force that connects everything in the universe.
Exactly. And our guide for this deep dive is Frederick Copleston's book, Religion and the One, Philosophies East and West. He takes us on this whirlwind tour of all these different philosophies and religions, and they each have their own unique take on this idea of like the one. So buckle up. We're about to explore some seriously big questions.
And what's fascinating is we're not like setting out to prove or disprove the existence of the one. That's not really the point. It's more about understanding the like intellectual journey, the different ways that brilliant minds throughout history have tried to grapple with this concept of, ultimate reality.
Okay, so let's just start by setting the stage. When we talk about the one, we're talking about metaphysics. What does that even mean?
Yeah, so think of metaphysics as like the ultimate quest to understand the nature of reality itself. It's not just about what we can see, but about delving into those, the underlying principles, like the fundamental building blocks of existence. So it's asking questions like, what's the relationship between mind and matter? Or is there a purpose to the
So
universe?
it's not just about the what, but also the why, right?
Precisely, and that's where the one comes in. It's this attempt to find that unifying principle, a single source or essence that underpins the incredible diversity and complexity that we see all around us.
Yeah. Okay, I'm starting to see how this connects. But how do we even begin to reconcile this idea of a single one with like the fact that there's so many different things in the universe? I mean, just look around,
Right.
planets and puppies and pizza. It's a lot to try to squeeze into like one big concept.
Right, and that's this fundamental tension between the one and the many, and that's exactly what makes this so fascinating to explore. Copleston shows us how different philosophies navigate this tension. Some lean more towards the unity of it all, others emphasize the diversity, and some even try to hold both in a kind of like dynamic balance.
So let's start our philosophical journey, shall we? And I
Mm.
think a good place to start is by heading east. Eastern philosophies have this long, rich history of exploring the one. So let's start with Taoism. What can you tell us about their concept of the Tao?
Ah, the Tao. It's often described as the ultimate source of all things, that underlying principle that governs the universe. But here's the catch. It's also said to be nameless and formless, ultimately beyond our ability to fully grasp.
So how do you even wrap your head around something that's like indescribable?
That's the challenge and the beauty of Taoism, right? It's about letting go of those rigid definitions and embracing the mystery. The Tao Te Ching, like the foundational text of Taoism, uses poetic language and metaphors to point us towards this elusive concept.
Can you give us an example? I'm all about a good metaphor.
Sure. The Tao is often compared to water. It's fluid, it's adaptable, yet incredibly powerful. It flows around obstacles, nourishes all things, and ultimately returns to the source.
Okay, I can see how that works. So it's not about controlling or dominating, but like aligning yourself with this natural flow of the universe.
Exactly. And this has profound implications for how we live. Taoism encourages us to cultivate things like humility, non-attachment, and effortless action, what they call wu wei.
So it's like finding that sweet spot where we're acting but not forcing things, not going against I guess, the natural order.
Exactly. And that's a powerful message that resonates even today. I mean, in our often chaotic and demanding world.
Okay, so Taoism gives us this image of this fluid, ever-changing Tao that's ultimately beyond our full comprehension. How does that compare to Buddhism's perspective on the one?
Well, Buddhism offers a radically different but equally compelling perspective. Central to Buddhist thought is this concept of emptiness or sunyata in Sanskrit. Now, this doesn't mean that nothing exists. It points to the idea that all things are interconnected, impermanent, and lack any fixed, independent self.
Wait, so you're saying there's no such thing as a solid me? That's a bit of a mind bender.
It is, and it's a concept that can be challenging to grasp at first. But understanding emptiness can actually be incredibly freeing. It helps us let go of attachments to fixed ideas of ourselves and the world, allowing us to see things with fresh eyes.
So it's about recognizing that everything is in this constant state of flux
Mm.
and that we're interconnected and ultimately dependent on everything else.
Exactly. And this understanding leads to compassion and a deep sense of interconnectedness with all beings. Now, while Buddhism might not explicitly talk about the one in the same way that some other traditions do, this interconnectedness, this web of interdependence, can be seen as a kind of unifying principle.
I'm starting to see how these different philosophies, even though they use different language and imagery, are all sort of circling around this idea of a deeper unity underlying all the multiplicity of the world.
You're getting it.
Right.
And it's this underlying unity that can be seen as a kind of one, even if it's not always explicitly named as such.
Okay, on to Hinduism. Now, I know Hinduism has a vast pantheon of gods and goddesses. So, how does this concept of the one fit into this seemingly polytheistic tradition?
That's a great question, and it's here that we encounter this concept of Brahman. Think of Brahman as the ultimate reality, the source and ground of all existence. It's beyond all names and forms, encompassing everything, including the gods and goddesses themselves.
So it's like the ultimate cosmic ocean from which all these deities and everything else emerges.
Exactly. And within Hinduism, there are different schools of thought on the relationship between Brahman and the individual self, or Atman.
Okay, this is where I get a little lost. Can you break down those different perspectives?
Sure. One prominent school of thought is Advaita Vedanta. Advaita means non-dual, and this school emphasizes the ultimate identity of the Atman and Brahman. In other words, deep down, your true self is not separate from the ultimate reality.
So you're saying that at the most fundamental level, we're all part of this one ultimate reality. That's a pretty radical idea.
It is, and it's been debated for centuries within Hinduism itself. Not all schools agree with this idea of non-duality. Some emphasize a distinction between the individual soul and Brahman.
Okay, so even within Hinduism, there are these different ways of understanding this relationship between the individual and the ultimate. But there's still this overarching concept of Brahman as the source of everything, right?
Exactly, and that's what's so fascinating about this, about this exploration of the one, right? We see how this idea manifests in different ways across cultures and traditions, but there's this common thread, the shared human yearning to understand our place in the grand scheme of things.
Speaking of yearning for understanding, sometimes I wish I had a personal guide to help me navigate these complex philosophical ideas. If you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by all this talk of Brahman and emptiness, check out the Mindful Moments YouTube channel. They use AI to break down complex philosophical concepts into bite-sized pieces, perfect for those moments when you want to, nourish your mind on the go.
That's a great resource. It's amazing how technology can help make these profound ideas more accessible.
Absolutely. Now, we've been focusing on Eastern philosophy so far, but it's important to remember that Western thought has also grappled with this idea of the one for centuries.
You're right. We have figures like Plotinus, Spinoza, and Hegel, each with their own unique take on this concept of ultimate unity.
Let's dive into that Western world of the one, starting with Plotinus.
Right.
What's his story?
So Plotinus was a major figure in Neoplatonism, a philosophical school that drew heavily from the ideas of the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. He saw God as the ultimate source of everything, a kind of absolute light emanating through various levels of being.
So it's like a cosmic hierarchy with everything flowing from this one divine source.
Exactly. And for Plotinus, the goal of human life was to ascend through these levels of being, ultimately achieving union with the divine.
That's a pretty mystical idea. And what about Spinoza? I know he was a bit of a rebel in the philosophy world.
Spinoza was definitely a bold thinker. He proposed a monistic view, arguing that there's only one substance in the universe. He called it God, or nature, and saw it as having two attributes, mind and matter.
So everything is ultimately one, but it expresses itself in two ways. Through thought and through physical stuff.
You got it. And this monistic view had radical implications for how Spinoza understood everything from ethics to politics.
I bet. And finally, we have Hegel. What was his contribution to this conversation about the one?
Hegel was a complex thinker, and his philosophy is notoriously difficult to summarize. But one key idea is his concept of the absolute idea. Hegel saw history itself as a process of this absolute idea unfolding, moving towards greater self-consciousness and understanding.
So for Hegel, the one isn't static. It's dynamic, like evolving through the course of history.
Exactly, and he believed that philosophy itself was part of this process of the absolute idea becoming aware of itself.
Wow, that's a pretty heady concept. It's amazing to see how all these different thinkers from Taoism to Hegel have approached this idea of the one from such diverse angles.
What's really striking is that even though these philosophical systems seem so different on the surface, there's a common thread, a shared human quest to understand the ultimate nature of reality and our place within it. It really speaks to this, deep longing to find meaning and connection in a world that often feels, fragmented and kind of chaotic.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
But here's a question that's been like swirling in my mind as we've been exploring these different philosophies. If everything is ultimately one, if there's this underlying unity to existence, does that mean the good and evil are just like illusions? And what about like our responsibility to make the world a better place? If everything is already part of this perfect one, like why even bother?
Yeah, those are great questions, and they get to the heart of how these abstract philosophical ideas about the one connect to real world issues like morality and social change. And Copleston actually grapples with these very questions in his book, and it's not a simple answer. It's not like believing in the one automatically makes you an apathetic bystander or a passionate activist. It really depends on how each philosophy interprets this concept and how it can allow to lived human experience.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all answer.
Not at all. Let's take Taoism, for example. It emphasizes this kind of like natural morality that flows from living in harmony with the Tao. It's not about, following a rigid set of rules, but about cultivating virtues like compassion, humility, and non-attachment.
So it's about aligning our actions with this natural flow of the universe.
Yeah.
Acting in a way that's in tune with this underlying unity.
Exactly. And that can have, very real implications for how we treat each other, how we approach social issues, and even how we interact with the environment.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about philosophies that see the one as like beyond good and evil, beyond these human categories? Does that mean that ethics just becomes irrelevant?
It's a tricky question for sure. But let's look at Spinoza, for instance. Even though he saw, the ultimate substance, God or nature, as beyond moral categories, he still believed that understanding this unity could lead to a more ethical life.
How so? If there's no good or bad, how do we make ethical choices?
Well, for Spinoza, true freedom comes from, understanding our place in this grand scheme of things and acting in accordance with reason. He believed that the more we understand this underlying unity, the more we're, freed from the passions and illusions that lead to, suffering and conflict.
So it's not about denying ethics, but about grounding it in this deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all things.
Precisely. And this brings us to another fascinating question. How do these different conceptions of the one actually influence social change?
That's a big one. Because, on the surface, it might seem like believing in the one could lead to like a kind of passive acceptance of the status quo. Like,
Yeah.
If everything is already part of this perfect unity, like why rock the boat?
Yeah, that's one possible interpretation, but it's definitely not the whole story. Remember, we're talking about this vast spectrum of philosophies here. Some actually see belief in the one as a powerful call to action. A motivation to work towards a more just and compassionate world that reflects this underlying unity.
So it's not about escaping from the world, but about like transforming it,
Yeah.
about bringing it into greater alignment with this deeper reality.
Exactly. And this is where things get, really nuanced. We have to consider the specific historical and cultural context in which these philosophies developed.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. The Advaita Vedanta school in Hinduism, with its emphasis on the non-duality of the self and Brahman, has sometimes been criticized for promoting a kind of world-denying mysticism that discourages social activism.
I can see how that interpretation might arise. I mean, if you believe that the material world is ultimately an illusion, why bother trying to fix it?
Right. But even within the Advaita Vedanta tradition, there are different interpretations. Some argue that while the ultimate reality might transcend the world of appearances, we still have this moral duty to act compassionately and work for the betterment of society. It's about recognizing the relative truth of the world we experience while also understanding its connection to a deeper reality.
It's just like saying, okay, yeah, the world might be an illusion in the grand scheme of things, but it's the illusion we're all living in. So let's make it the best illusion possible.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And this highlights an important point. There's no, single monolithic answer to how belief in the one influences social change. It depends on the specific philosophy, the interpretation, and the individual's own understanding.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. It seems like nuance and context are key when we're dealing with these big philosophical questions.
Absolutely. It's not about simplistic generalizations or easy answers. It's diving deep, wrestling with the ideas, and finding what resonates with our own, experience and value.
And that brings us to another fascinating challenge. If there are so many different philosophical systems all claiming to offer insights into the nature of reality, like how do we know which one is right?
The problem of plurality. It's a question that's, haunted philosophers for centuries. If there's only one ultimate reality, shouldn't there be like only one correct way of understanding it? Why this bewildering array of competing worldviews?
Right. It's like everyone's claiming to have the one true map to this ultimate destination, but they all look completely different.
Exactly. And that's where the question of evaluating these competing worldviews comes in. How do we assess the truth or falsity of these different perspectives? And Copleston actually explores different criteria, including logical coherence, comprehensiveness, and explanatory power.
So it's not just about blind faith or personal preference.
Yeah.
There are ways to like rationally assess the strengths and weaknesses of these philosophical systems.
Absolutely. We can ask questions like, is this system internally consistent? Or does it account for a wide range of phenomena? Does it provide a compelling explanation for for the world that we experience?
So we're looking for a worldview that's not only logically sound, but also comprehensive and insightful.
Exactly. And some philosophers might even add criteria like simplicity and elegance. The idea is that a simpler, more elegant explanation is more likely to be true. It's like Occam's razor, that principle that we should prefer the simplest explanation that fits the facts.
So it's like a combination of logic, comprehensiveness, explanatory power, and even a bit of aesthetic judgment.
In a way, yeah. But it's important to remember that these criteria aren't foolproof. They can guide our thinking, but there's always room for debate and interpretation.
Of course. Because ultimately, we're dealing with the biggest questions imaginable, right?
Yeah.
Questions about the very nature of reality, the meaning of life, and our place in the universe. There are no like easy answers or simple formulas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this exploration so intellectually stimulating. We're forced to confront the limits of our own understanding and to grapple with ideas that challenge our assumptions and expand our horizons.
I love that. It's about embracing the mystery, the wonder, and the ongoing quest for understanding.
I couldn't agree more. And it's in that spirit of, open-minded exploration that I think we should turn back to the core theme of our deep dive, religion. How does this abstract concept of the one connect to the personal God of theistic religions? Can we reconcile these seemingly different ways of thinking?
That's a great question. Because on the one hand, we have this image of like an infinite, all-encompassing one that seems, beyond our comprehension. But on the other hand, we have this idea of, a God who loves us, who listens to our prayers, and who, guides us on our life journey. Like, how do we bridge that gap?
It's a profound tension. and one that has occupied, theologians and philosophers for centuries. Part of the challenge lies in the limitations of, human language. How do we use our finite words to describe something that's ultimately beyond our grasp? How do we talk about the infinite, using the tools of the finite?
Yeah, it's like trying to draw a picture of the universe on a postage stamp.
Yeah.
You're always going to fall short.
Exactly. And that's why analogies and metaphors play such a crucial role in both philosophy and religion. They allow us to approach the mystery of the one using language that resonates with our human experience.
So it's not about literal descriptions, but about like pointing towards something that's ultimately beyond words. A way of hinting at the mystery.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this is where the concept of negative theology comes in. It's the idea that we can approach the divine not by saying what it is, but by saying what it is not, by negating our limited human concepts.
So instead of saying God is this or God is that, we say God is not this or God is not that.
Exactly. It's a way of acknowledging the limitations of our language and recognizing the vastness of the mystery that lies at the heart of the divine.
Okay, so we've explored all these different philosophical traditions from east to west. We've tackled this, the problem of plurality, and we've delved into this relationship between the one and religion. So, like, what does this all mean for us? For our own lives? What's the takeaway from this philosophical roller coaster ride?
I think the key takeaway is that the pursuit of the one is ultimately a journey of, self-discovery. It's about expanding our awareness, challenging our assumptions, and recognizing the interconnectedness of all things.
So it's not about finding this fixed answer or a final destination, but about embracing the journey itself.
Exactly. And this journey can take many forms. It can be intellectual, spiritual, or even artistic. It's about opening ourselves up to new ways of seeing the world and our place in it.
I love that. It's about finding meaning and purpose amidst all the the diversity of worldviews.
Yeah.
About recognizing the beauty and mystery of existence, and about striving to live in a way that reflects the unity that we perceive, even if we can't fully grasp it.
Beautifully said. And what's truly inspiring is that even though there's no single right answer, the very act of seeking, of questioning, of grappling with these ideas can transform us. It can make us more compassionate, more understanding, and more connected to the world around us.
And speaking of journeys, I think it's important to acknowledge that we've only scratched the surface of these incredibly rich philosophical traditions.
Yeah.
There's always more to explore, more to unpack, more to ponder.
You're absolutely right. This deep dive has been this, whirlwind tour of some of the most profound ideas humanity has ever grappled with. But it's really just a starting point. It's an invitation to dive deeper, to read more, to engage in your own, philosophical explorations.
And if you're feeling inspired to do just that, we highly recommend checking out Frederick Copleston's Religion and the One. It's a challenging but incredibly rewarding read. It will really deepen your understanding of these enduring questions about the nature of reality and our place in the universe.
And to make it even easier for you to embark on your own philosophical adventure, we've got an affiliate link to purchase the book in the show notes. Every purchase through that link helps us keep these deep dives going. So thank you for supporting the show and for being part of this journey with us.
We truly appreciate your support. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to leave you with a final thought, something to, ponder as you go about your day. We've explored all these different perspectives on the one, each with its own, internal logic and coherence. But what if, and here's where things get really interesting, what if all these seemingly contradictory viewpoints are actually valid in their own way?
Okay, now you've really got me thinking. Are you suggesting that there's no single correct answer, no ultimate truth to be found?
Maybe, or maybe just maybe.
Yeah.
The truth is much bigger, much more expansive than we can possibly, imagine with our limited human minds. Maybe it's not about choosing one perspective over another, but about holding all these different, viewpoints in a kind of dynamic tension, allowing them to enrich and challenge each other.
So instead of searching for a single static truth, We should, embrace the multiplicity of perspectives, the ongoing dialogue between different ways of seeing the world.
Exactly. Maybe that's the real,
Mm,
beauty of philosophy.
mm.
The recognition that there's always more to learn, more to question, more to wonder about. It's not about reaching a final destination, but about embracing the journey itself.
And who knows, maybe that journey, that constant striving for, understanding is what brings us closest to the one, to that elusive unity that lies at the heart of all things.
I love that idea. So to all our listeners out there, keep searching, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of existence. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe and share it with anyone who loves a good philosophical exploration. We'll be back soon with another, mind-expanding adventure. Until then, keep those brains buzzing.